I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're diving into the enchanting world of Into the Magic Cornfield, a Heather Hazelkind story by Todd Bernacil. This is a whimsical tale in which a kind elementary school teacher stumbles into a magical cornfield filled with fantastical creatures and is faced with a choice between returning home or defeating an evil scarecrow. With themes of redemption, sacrifice, and hope, this story is sure to captivate readers of all ages, creating a family-friendly atmosphere where both children and adults can enjoy the adventure. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us once again here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below the interview. Todd, welcome back to our show. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you for having me on your show again, Mr. Crawford. And as always, I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
It's an honor to have you on the show. You're a terrific author, and these are just great books that are filled with imagination and fun. Tell us a little bit about what inspired you to write Into the Cornfield.
Yeah, so I guess in 2009, I was freshly out of school and unemployed. And so one night, I was just reading grim fairy tales, and I got this burning desire in me that said that, I want to create my own fantasy story, my own adventure story. Only this time, I didn't want it to be like the typical European fantasy trope. I wanted to do more like an American fairy tale, sort of like L. Frank Baum and his Wizard of Oz series. And so, yeah, I guess I came up with the cornfield, I guess, when I was like 13 years old. And I guess I was playing around, with my toys. And I just came up with a strange vision of like a woman falling into a bizarre cornfield full of strange and interesting creatures and adventures. And so that's how it all began. So I took that original idea and adopted it and created my own story out of it. And so it worked out real nicely. So, yeah.
It really did work out really, really well. Very well told, very interesting, very imaginative. Tell us the kind of creatures that Heather encounters when she falls into the magic cornfield.
Yeah. So the first creature that she meets is a talking ear of corn with a friendly face. And he introduces her to the cornfield. And so, like later on, she'll encounter like two giant crows that threaten to peck her eyeballs out if she doesn't deliver them worms. And so that was kind of funny and kind of creepy. Yeah, and she meets like a lovely old woman who lives in a giant cornstalk house, and she gives Heather a ladybug pendant that has a magical charm to it. And yeah, and so later on, she'll encounter I don't know, like three jackrabbits the size of wolves, and they're really ugly, and they try to prevent her from advancing further into the cornfield. And she's saved and guarded by an armadillo knight. And so, yeah, it's just a lovely, charming tale, and kids should love it. So, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, they will be wowing at the different creatures and the Armadillo Knight, which of course is a great creation as well. Now, this is part of a series. Tell me about the books in the series. How many are there? How many do you envision?
Yeah, so there are two books. There's Into the Magic Cornfield and Return to the Magic Cornfield. So I'll just give a brief synopsis of Return to the Magic Cornfield. So, yeah, so the story starts a year after Into the Magic Cornfield, and Heather, she makes it out of the cornfield, and she's writing a novel about her tale in the guise of a children's fantasy story, and she reads her book to her third grade students, and her third grade students finds out that the stories she has been telling to them are in fact real. And so they try to find the key that will take them to the mysterious realm. And so Heather has to, bring them out of that world, because she knows it's both pleasant and dangerous. So that's the story of this sequel novel. And so, yeah, I kind of got the idea of the sequel novel because my editor really encouraged me to write a sequel. I guess because she enjoyed the first one, and she said that it has series potential. And so I kind of like thought about it. I was like, I have a few ideas that I could use. That's, I mean, and so that's how that whole idea, started. And it was because of my editor that I wrote the sequel. And I'm real proud of that sequel too. I think it's one of my finest works. I mean, both of them are pretty good novels, what I mean? And so yeah.
Absolutely. So we
So
got Into the Magic Cornfield and Return to the Magic Cornfield. Are you envisioning a third book now or not yet?
no, not yet. Yeah, I'm working with my two books. I mean, there's a number of scouting companies that are interested in my stories, and so yeah, I'm working with them, and it's all about just gaining popularity, gaining exposure, and so I'm kind of more working on the marketing side of these two books, and I just you never know, maybe something will come to me, for another sequel, and so yeah.
But you
It's
never know where the inspiration might come. You've got the characters set up, you've got the backdrop set up, and your imagination is the only limitation. And I don't think that's limited at all. So I'm sure if you want to, you'll come up with a third installment. But we'll see how these two do. They're wonderful, that's for sure. Have you envisioned these as films or animated series or anything like that?
Yeah, yeah, I do. In fact, when I was writing the stories, I hired, I wanted to put illustrations in there because, that's just for some reason these stories just they're very visual. I mean, there's a lot of interesting, creatures and everything, and I just felt compelled to, put illustrations in there. So I hired a wonderful illustrator from Fiverr. And yeah, the first book has 60 illustrations, and the second book has over 145 illustrations. And so, yeah, in a way, I kind of invented my own, little movie, so to speak. It's kind of like the
Exactly.
concept art of a movie. And
Sure.
so, yeah, yeah,
You've almost
and
you basically created the storyboard because you've got the story, you've got the illustrations, and all you got to do is fill in the blanks in between. So I think that's amazing.
yeah.
And it must have been fun collaborating with the artist to make the pictures, right? Because you were telling him or her what you wanted and what you envisioned, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I would like draw my own picture and I would take like extracts from the story and I would give her some author notes and everything and told her exactly what I wanted. Yeah. And so she would submit her first draft and then I would recommend some revisions. And so we would go through a number of drafts until finally I got the picture that I like. And yeah. So, yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, your professional background is pretty vastly different than your creative writing background. You work in biological sciences and forensic DNA?
Well, that's what I majored in.
Hmm.
I got my bachelor's in biological science and my master's in forensic DNA and serology. I also have a certificate in biotech. So currently I work in the chemical industry right
Hmm.
now. But I mean, really, I don't think you have to be, major in like liberal arts or anything to be
Oh,
a,
yeah.
a good novelist. There are
No,
plenty of examples of people like the man who created the story Jurassic Park. I believe he was like an MD, and I guess he was involved in biotech, and it really shows in his work. And so, yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, you don't have to study the arts to be an artist. In fact, I think sometimes when you study the arts and you're an artist, it limits you because you just learn what everybody else has done and you're learning how everybody else is doing it. And by doing it in your own unique, original way, I think that's how you stand out.
yeah, yeah, very true. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about the reaction from young people who have read this book. Have you read it to any kids or given it to any kids? Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, Um, there were a few kids, I think. Let me start with the adults first. The adults, I mean, really liked it. Yeah, my my friend's mother, she's a real bookworm, and so when she read it, she said she got immediately hooked and she couldn't put it down, and she thought it was so charming and it kept her interest the entire way. So that was good. And my editor liked it. And just people around me, liked it. Obviously, you liked it. And so I decided to take my work to a local ranch out in the spring, and it's a ranch that's designed for kids. It had an Alice in Wonderland theme, And so I was out there selling books, and yeah, I had props that I made of the story, and I had my posters, and I had my booth and everything. It was all decorated in green and corn stalks and everything. And these two girls, yeah, these two girls, they didn't know each other, but they were just constantly staring at the poster of my book. They couldn't, and all the illustrations, they just couldn't keep their eyes off of it. And so when their mothers finally bought them a book, they stood in front of the poster, they posed and they held the picture up and they smiled brightly. And I took a picture myself. And that just warms my heart. That just tells me that I did something right, that I put smiles on these children's faces. And that's what pretty much the cornfield is all about. It's about, children and families. It's about, lifting people up, and yeah, it really wasn't about me. It's about them. It's about the kids and the family. And so I'm real proud of it.
Absolutely. I think you're going to put the smiles on the faces of a lot of children, a lot of families. I think parents and children will enjoy reading these stories together. It'll actually maybe come up with their own cornfield adventures as well as they embellish upon the story, which would be great. The book we've been focusing on today is called Into the Magic Cornfield, a Heather Hazelkind story. There's a sequel to it. It's called Return to the Magic Cornfield. Both are excellent. In this book that we've been talking about today, it is a whimsical tale where a kind elementary school teacher stumbles into a magical cornfield filled with fantastical creatures and is faced with a choice between returning home and defeating an evil scarecrow. It's an instant classic. You will just love it. Todd, thank you so much for joining me here today on Spotlight.
Yes. Thank you for having me on your show again, Mr. Crawford, and enjoy the Magic Cornfield, everyone. So thank you. Yeah.
Appreciate that, Todd. Thanks so much for your time. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.